guy try and blame it on me. And I said, man, that's a tough one to take. But his career is limited because I hear AOC is going to beat him.
Well, there you have that. Okay, so for more, let's welcome and host of Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Kaye, Mark, great to see you this morning. We know that the president is visiting Texas on Friday. Every source has confirmed that the National Weather Service had extra staff. Warnings were issued hours in advance. I have to think the American people don't want to hear Democrats' rhetoric with the fake blame game. This is a time when everyone should be focused on the victims and not how a natural disaster could have been averted or how it somehow was Donald Trump's fault. What do you think?
I think the people are sick of the Democrats' rhetoric on pretty much everything. But yes, specifically on the threats in Texas. And, you know, it's really interesting. They did this with George W. and Hurricane Katrina. This is nowhere near as devastating. But still, the meteorologists that have come out in support of President Donald Trump, many of them, I don't know their political background, but they said, look, we got alerts. We got alerts from the National Weather Service. The weather alerts were there. They were constant. They were consistent. They were adamant. And the only reason that this flood was as deadly as it was is because you had, an entire year's worth of rain drop on an area in about 40 minutes. And yes, it also happened to be in the middle of the night when nobody was prepared for it. And of course, when you're in rural Texas, it's very difficult to have those early warning systems. But of course, with President Donald Trump in office, it is all about him, blaming those Doge cuts, which again, the staff of the National Alert Service, they weren't affected by Doge cuts. They were overstaffed. They were prepared with surge staffing because they knew this potential weather event could have happened. It was a tragedy. The response has been incredible, not just from FEMA and President Donald Trump's crew, but of course from Americans everywhere who are pitching in to help out. And that's really what the Democrats should do, but that's not what they're going to do.
Yeah.
No.
You laid it out perfectly. Well
you were
said.
there. You said you got alerts. I
got alerts, hours and minutes. But as you said, no one could have predicted when you get that flash flood warning that means that 26 feet of water is going to rise over a river's banks in 40 minutes time. No one could have predicted what had happened in the middle of the night.
All right, Mark. So the big political news breaking last night. Reports suggest the FBI is launching a criminal investigation into James Comey, John Brennan over the Trump-Russia hoax. This is 10 years in the making nearly. Americans finally going to get the answer. Are they finally going to be held accountable for what they did?
Well, as Michael Scott from The Office would say, oh, how the turntables. But it is...
one of my favorite shows.
It is nice to see, I know it's everyone's favorite show, it is nice to see that there is potentially some investigatory stuff going on with the other side of the aisle. It's nice to see that the people who were attacking Donald Trump and who were coming after Republicans and who were sending FBI agents to Mar-a-Lago and PTA meetings and Catholic churches are finally on the other side of this and could be brought up on charges for criminal activity. Now, will it happen? History will tell us that probably everyone will get off scot-free. That's what we've been learning in the last few days. But at least it's going to cause them a little bit of discomfort. It's going to cause them a lot of money in legal fees, and maybe they'll be pushed to the brink of bankruptcy and political ruin the way President Donald Trump almost was before his monumental comeback.
And a lot was said in that cabinet meeting yesterday that the president held. And he also talked about a potential new mayor of New York City, Mayor Mamdani. Take a listen to what he had to say.
This is a man who's not very capable, in my opinion, other than he's got a good line of and he's convinced them to go with him. I used to say, we will not ever be a socialist country, right? Well, I'll say it again. We're not going to have... If a communist gets elected to run New York, it can never be the same, but we have tremendous power at the White House to run places when we have to.
Yes, of course, New York Governor Kathy Hochul responding with voters decide who runs New York City, not Washington, certainly not wannabe kings. What's your reaction to this? And he's not wrong. I mean, isn't Mamdani a self-proclaimed socialist, essentially? He wants government-run grocery stores in New York City.
Yeah, I got to tell you, that was one heck of a cabinet meeting yesterday, wasn't it? You had John Lovett's references. There was cursing. At one point, he told a story about stealing Marco Rubio's grandfather clock from his office. I don't know if he's probably high on passing the one big beautiful bill, and he's having a great time. But Mamdani is a real threat, not just to the United States of America, but also to Israel and other countries, because he is anti-Semitic. He's pro-Palestine. He's made online attacks against the police, talked about defunding them, and he is the front runner to be the mayor of New York City, where President Donald Trump is from, a city that President Donald Trump helped build. He's not going to sit by and watch it, succumb to communism or socialism the way that, say, London has. I mean, New York is a very important economic center for the entire world. And as Donald Trump said in his Truth Social post last week, I hold all the levers. I have all of the cards. And while he cannot maybe convince voters to vote one way or the other, he can convince Mamdani to govern one way or the other, because New York City requires a lot of federal aid. And if he wants it, he's going to have to do what President Donald Trump says.
Yeah, no, good point.
The election of a communist might be the greatest tourism poster for Florida there ever was. All right. Mark Kaye. We'll see you back here in about 20.
Where's my music? Wait a minute, why am I? Oh, that's a bummer. Hold on, my music was supposed to start. Here we go. There we go. What's up, man? I gotta tell you, just when you thought there was news, they come out with more news. It's like a nonstop 24/7 thing. I used to but I used to say there's no need for 24-hour news stations, but now it seems like they're creating more news just to keep up with the 24-hour news stations. We're not on for 24 hours, but you can listen to us anytime you want, 24/7 on our podcast, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. And if you're not yet subscribed, you're going to want to do it. You're going to want to subscribe to this YouTube channel or Rumble. You're going to want to set the notifications so that you get notified every single time we go live, every single time we post content. And you're also, this is very exciting, going to want to download our podcast on iTunes or Google. Google Play is gone. I don't know why I got to get that out of my head. On iTunes or Spotify or any other podcast platform that you prefer. And there's so many of them. In fact, yesterday in my Podcast Profits Live event, which was amazing. Man, it was amazing. With my Podcast Profits Live event that we did last night at 8 o'clock, one of the questions came up and said, what is the best podcasting platform? And I said, whichever one carries my show. I'm just kidding. That's actually probably, they all do. We're everywhere. We're literally everywhere. So you can find us wherever you want. But anyway, greetings and thank you so much for being here today. Like I said, subscribe and set the notifications because we got a lot coming out. The doctor, this is the big breaking news. Big breaking news this morning, right before the show. Big breaking news from the department. Dr. Kevin O'Connor, who was President Joe Biden's doctor, has pled the fifth in front of a committee at the House of Representatives. That's a big duh. We need to get like a duh. We need to get like a duh signal or a duh. What do you call it? Like a duh sounder, because this is one of the biggest duh moments. I mean, of course, this guy's pleading. Of course, this guy's pleading the fifth because he knows that what he did was horrendous. This is President Joe Biden's physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, just pleaded the fifth at his deposition before Congress today. This was Representative James Comer. It's now clear there was a conspiracy to cover up President Biden's cognitive decline after Dr. Kevin O'Connor, Biden's physician and family business associate, refused to answer any questions and chose to hide behind the Fifth Amendment. The American people demand transparency, but Dr. O'Connor would rather conceal the truth. Dr. O'Connor took the fifth when asked if he was told to lie about President Biden's health and whether he was fit to be president of the United States. It's fairly telling. Congress must assess, this is where it gets weird. Congress must assess legislative solutions to prevent such a cover-up from happening again. We will continue to interview more Biden White House aides to get the answers Americans deserve. This is where, and again, James Comer, he does some decent things. He's got a pretty good head on his shoulders. He's very conservative. I've questioned a couple of the things he's done and a couple of the votes he's done and a couple of the things he's tweeted, but I don't know about this. This whole tweet, when you break it down, the first part, okay, I get it. Dr. O'Connor was asked to whether he was told, okay, let me start over. I'm so flabbergasted. He was asked, were you told to lie about President Biden's health? He took the fifth, which you can, extrapolate means somebody told him to lie about President Biden's health. Then he was asked if President Biden was fit to be president of the United States. Again, he pled the fifth. Now, the reason he had to plead the fifth the second time is because he pled the fifth the first time. So if he pled the fifth on were you asked to lie about Joe Biden's health, he already told us that Joe Biden was fit. So we already know the answer to that. And that's the duh part. The second part, though, is kind of weird. Congress must assess legislative solutions to prevent such a cover-up from happening again. We will continue to interview more Biden White House aides to get the answers Americans deserve. Now, that's where it gets weird to me. Why is it that we need to assess legislative solutions to prevent a cover-up from happening again? Why don't we just throw people's butts in jail? Because that's what jail is. Jail is a preventive measure. Jail is a way to prevent criminals from, recidivism and going out and committing crimes again. And it's also a way to dissuade people from committing crimes in the future. For example, if you knew as a doctor that if you lied about the president's condition and told the American people that the president was mentally and physically able to do the job that was laid out in the Constitution, when you know full well he's a vegetable. That dude doesn't know who he is, where he is, what he is. That dude can barely talk, walk, think. He can't even open up a folding chair on the beach. He can't remember the names of people. He doesn't know if people are dead or alive. He doesn't know how to walk off of a stage or walk upstairs. This guy is not fit to be president. But if you go out there and lie about it, then the best thing to do is throw this guy in jail for a very long time. That's how you dissuade people. You don't need legislative solutions. You just need to arrest people. Put them away for a very, very, very long time. It's like cops on the side of the road when you're speeding. Like if you're speeding along, right, at 95 miles an hour on 95, because like most of us, you think that the numerical name of the interstate is actually the speed limit. And if you're cruising along 95 at 95 and all of a sudden you see a cop, what do? You slam on the cops on your brakes. Why? Because when you see the cop there in close proximity, you now believe that you potentially could get in trouble. So you stop breaking the law. When you don't see the cop or when the cop is out of sight, you gun it because you then know you're going to get away with something and you doubt the government's ability to enforce the law. Well, it's the same thing here. If you don't throw this guy in jail, if you don't make an example of him, then future doctors for future presidents will lie about future presidents' cognitive abilities to execute the office of future president. And that's why this is kind of a weird and bizarre and quizzical message from James Comer. We have video, by the way, of Dr. Kevin O'Connor coming out of the room. This was after his deposition or after his questioning where he pled the fifth. There he is walking. There's a bunch of lawyers. There's one with a mask, so you know she's a Democrat. And he walks. He's the short guy. I didn't realize how short this dude was, man, but he's tiny. He's like a little tiny dude. He's got to be 5'1", maybe.
Will you make any comments to press, sir?
Do you have a message for the committee?
Yeah. So there's that. Here it is from another angle. Here it is from another. This is the same thing. Further down the hallway.
Was President Biden mentally fit to serve as president?
Dr. O'Connor, what's your message to the committee?
You think he was up to serve? Thank you. Have you told the truth the entire time that he was in fact up to serve?
Okay, so there you go. That's him. That's the little doctor. That's itty bitty Dr. O'Connor, and he is walking away in shame, not saying a word to the press, not saying a word to the committee. He knows. Here's basically what's going to happen if the Republicans do their job. Here's what's going to happen. He should lose his medical license. In fact, when I rewatched the episode of The West Wing where they found out that Josiah Bartlett, president of the United States, was covering up his multiple sclerosis. Because no, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen The West Wing, also, I mean, it was like a 25-year-old show. But if you haven't seen The West Wing, he had multiple sclerosis, MS, and he covered it up and he got elected president. And then it came out and everybody was like running around. They were lawyering up. They were trying to figure out what was going to happen. They were wondering if they were going to go to jail. And his wife, who actually was a doctor and gave him treatments, played by, what's her name? She was really good. She was really good. The woman who played Rizzo in Grease. I forget. Anyway, she did a great job and she lost her medical license because the Republicans went after her. And if that's at minimum, this guy should not be allowed to practice medicine for the rest of his life. But probably he will, because all James Comer seems interested in is making sure that Congress passes law to keep this from happening again in the future. Weird. Stockard Channing, by the way, was her name. I knew it would come. Stockard Channing. She played Mrs. Bartlett, Abby Bartlett, if I recall correctly. Anyway, it's amazing how much art imitates life, doesn't it? I don't know if Joe Biden, maybe Joe Biden, they watched The West Wing. They were like, okay, here's how we cover up a debilitating illness. Here's how we do it. Here's how we cover. They didn't do a good job, because this debilitating illness wasn't MS. It was dementia. And that's a lot tougher. That's a lot tougher to cover up. But that was the big breaking news just a few hours before we went live, is about Joe Biden's doctor. Now, keep in mind, Joe Biden's doctor is the first domino to fall. And first of all, he wasn't even going to show up. He'd ignored several requests from Jim Comer and the committee to appear and answer questions. And finally, James Comer was like, look, if you don't appear, we're just going to hold you in contempt. We'll come drag your butt in here or put you in jail that way. He finally showed up and he pled the fifth. That's the first step. Now you're going to find other Biden aides, other Biden administration members, other Biden caretakers, everybody from the White House being hauled. And I think probably if I were James Comer, and I don't know if he's playing nice or whatever, but you got to bring in every single Biden. Jill Biden, faux shizzle, should be there. Joe Biden, faux show, should be making an appearance on Capitol Hill. Hunter Biden, do you remember when Hunter Biden was brought back into the White House to be kind of his father's shadow? And we saw all these images of Hunter. We were like, why is Hunter Biden back in the White House? But then we realized he was walking with his father from Marine One to the north entrance. He was walking with his father, carrying his father's satchel. He was there on July 4th. We don't know what he looked like. He was, doing something else, but he was there right by his father's side. And his job was kind of to become his father's impromptu caretaker. That fell to Hunter Biden for a while. Well, now we know why. So Hunter Biden 100% should be deposed. Although we know Hunter Biden doesn't like to be deposed, because last time they hauled him up in front of a committee, he just showed up and sat in the gallery. Remember? He ignored the subpoena and showed up and sat in the gallery. He'd probably pull some kind of stupid stunt like that again. Ashley Biden, James Biden, bring in all the Bidens, everybody in his White House, every one of his advisors, for sure. For sure, you should have Ron Klain, the chief of staff, in there. I would bring in the Obamas too. Look, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris should be testifying in front of Congress as to the fitness of Joe Biden. And it'll be interesting to see what she says. Because this doctor was asked flat out, did you lie about Joe Biden's condition? Were you asked to lie about Joe Biden's condition? And he pled the fifth. Kamala Harris, you're telling me that Kamala Harris wasn't given the same directives? If Kamala Harris rolls in there and says, yes, I was, then all of a sudden you know that she's in contempt of Congress because she's lying. And if she says, I plead the fifth, well, then you've got a much bigger case. The problem is, according to the Republicans, it appears that all they're going to do is try to pass some legislation to keep this from happening. This is one of the things that really annoys me about the Republican Party is they should be, I want them to be like firebrands. I want them to be burning this group of individuals down to the ground. I want them to not be able to get away with it. Everybody's getting away with everything once again, and it's really kind of annoying. We see that the Epstein files now apparently are being slammed shut by President Donald Trump himself. In fact, there's a lot of people really split on what happened yesterday in the cabinet meeting, and I'll play that clip for you here in just a minute about President Donald Trump shutting down a reporter for asking about Jeffrey Epstein. But it seems like the Republicans are content to let these people plead the fifth, get away with it, and pass some kind of, political theater legislation so this stuff doesn't happen again in the future. These are the days when I miss Matt Gaetz, because Matt Gaetz would be standing on the front steps of Congress screaming bloody murder. He would be out there demanding that the Speaker of the House start some kind of investigation. He would be getting everybody subpoenaed. He would be in committee tearing the place to the ground. He would threaten Mike Johnson with removal from his position, because let's face it, he didn't vote for him anyway. If this wasn't handled on a much more I would say, heavy-handed way, but it's not. It's kind of being, it appears to me at the moment, at least, that it's being brushed under the rug. Here's a clip from some dude who wrote a book about Joe Biden. Listen to him talk about the debate prep, because, Joe Biden had one debate. Only one debate. Only took one debate. Donald Trump debated Joe Biden's career into the ground. Donald Trump debated Joe Biden's career into an early grave. It was one debate. Joe Biden said he wasn't feeling well. He wasn't thinking or speaking well either. And after that, he was forced by Chuck Schumer, the Palestinian senator from New York, to step aside. Nancy Pelosi called up her friend John Morgan and said, we got to get this guy out or we're all cooked. And Kamala Harris became the nominee without, by the way, anybody voting for her. Let's not forget about that. Anyway, listen to this guy talk about the debate prep in this book.
We have these debate memos that we obtained for the book. And his team was pushing him to debate early. And they were saying, this is your only chance to get out there early and try to take Trump on, right? And then they go to debate prep. They spend a week at Camp David, and it doesn't go well, right? There are days where he's sort of better than others. We report in our book, they call Steven Spielberg in to try and do kind of coaching with him. They're working on his facial expressions. They're really trying to make it happen. And Ron Klain, who's running the debate prep, who was his former chief of staff, says to others at the end of a prep, this is really going to be touch and go. I mean, they knew it was going to be rough in Atlanta, and they were hoping by spending a week or two out at Camp David, they could, sort of ameliorate these problems. They weren't able to do that, obviously.
I wasn't there for the questioning of this Dr. O'Connor, but I'm wondering if anyone asked him, did you give President Joe Biden any kind of medications or any kind of injections to enhance his performance that were not previously recorded or reported? Where's that question? That's the number one question I would have said was, hey, at Camp David during that debate prep, were you or did anyone else in the medical community give Joe Biden any kind of injection of adrenaline or vitamin B or of, I don't know, whatever, rocket fuel, I don't know, whatever it is, rocket fuel, malt liquor, damn. Well, did you give him anything at all? Did Hunter Biden roll up and be like, yo, check it out, I got something here. I can kick him right into gear. Did that happen? Was there some kind of crack cocktail that they gave him to even get him out on stage? Did they ever? Maybe not for the debate, but was there ever a time when they used any kind of substance to enhance Joe Biden's mental and cognitive and physical abilities to make it appear that he was nowhere near as deteriorated as he was? Again, I don't know if that's the question. I don't know if that question was asked, but that's where we are. Congress really needs some cojones. I really think the problem with there's a couple problems with the Republican Party. One of them is they very rarely stick together the way the Democrats do. And if we learned anything from the movie Gladiator, it's you have to stick together when you're facing evil forces. Now, in this day and age where they hold the majority in pretty much every aspect of government, it's less important. You do have your stragglers and you do have your holdouts and you do have people that disagree, but you can still muster up your majority when you need it. But when they're in the minority, 100% they need, just like the Democrats do. The Democrats are in lockstep with each other. The Republicans never are. And the second problem with the Republican Party is they're nowhere near as evil. They're nowhere near as evil and maniacal and angry as the Democrats are. They're nowhere near as sadistic and hell-bent on ruining the Democrats the way the Democrats are in ruining the Republicans. The Democrats, they don't just want Republicans out of office. They want them jailed, bankrupt, and even dead. And if you don't believe me, just look back at Butler, Pennsylvania in July of 2024, and you'll see evidence of that. In fact, you don't even need to go back that far. You just have to see about what they're saying right now. This is Hakeem Jeffries, who is now, okay, Hakeem Jeffries is the technical leader of the Democrat Party, but he's not really the leader of the Democrat Party. Hakeem Jeffries is the minority leader in the House of Representatives, which makes him the highest ranking Democrat at the moment. He's the highest ranking Democrat. Chuck Schumer is the minority leader in the Senate, but he's the highest ranking Palestinian member of the Senate. So basically that's where we are. And what happens is, with Hakeem Jeffries being the leader of the House of Representatives, he's got to answer all of the questions. But we know he's not the leader. We know AOC and Jasmine Crockett and all these other clowns who are out there running around saying stupid stuff. We know that they're actually running the Democrat Party. But anyway, here's what Hakeem Jeffries said about that Axios article we talked about yesterday, where they called on Democrats to to draw blood or bleed or be willing to get shot. There was an Axios, Democrats in the House of Representatives were telling Axios, there are people in our own party who are telling us we're not taking it far enough and we need to let ICE agents and Border Patrol agents and federal agents shoot us and cause even more violence. We need to be more of a group of agitators. That's the only way that democracy will be saved. What does Hakeem Jeffries think about that?
According to Axios, some are even being told they need to be more willing to go out there and get shot when fighting. That was a direct quote, get shot when fighting back against some of Trump's policies. One House Democrat saying, quote, and I'll read it to you, our own base is telling us that what we're doing is not good enough. There needs to be blood to grab the attention of the press and the public. How do you respond to that, Leader Jeffries? Are Democrats not meeting the moment, not doing enough to fight these developments?
Well, we are in a more is more environment in terms of the unprecedented assault on the American way of life and our country that has been launched by Donald Trump and compliant House Republicans.
Okay, so that sounds like a yes. That sounds like a yeah. We are in a more is more environment. So, okay, he's basically saying, yeah, we do need more violence. Yeah, we do need more bloodshed. Yeah, we do need more. That's basically what's being said. And what's happening is Hakeem Jeffries is basically placating and saying, yes, what you heard in that Axios article is accurate. There are folks in the party who are telling other individuals in the party that they need to get shot at. They need to up the rhetoric, up the violence, because it's the only way we're going to save our democracy. And that's fine and all if that's the way the Democrats want to play. But you know who doesn't play that way? The Republicans. The Republicans are like, we need to write more angry letters. We need to pass more legislation so this doesn't happen in the future. That'll get them. There's not a single Republican that I can think about. Well, maybe two. Maybe two Republicans in the House of Representatives who would get shot to save the republic. Most of them would just, sleep through the vote and get an early plane home. But there's two that I think would actually take a bullet for this republic. And that's bad because there's 220 of them in the House of Representatives, which leaves 218 who are just like, all right, that's enough. We've had enough of the violence and the rhetoric, and we're not going to push it any farther. You can have the republic. You can do with it what you want. It's really, really kind of devastating. I want to dip in on President Donald Trump here because he's speaking live, and Peter Doocy just asked him a question. He's speaking to some African leaders about something, and he's taking questions from the media, and Peter Doocy just asked a question, and it made President Donald Trump smile. So I don't know what the question is about, but I have it here, and I'm going to back up a little bit, and we're going to take a listen. We're going to take a listen into this press conference for just a second.
And maybe they have to pay a price for that. I believe they are truly bad people and dishonest people. So whatever happens, happens.
And now, a few weeks after the strikes that you ordered on the nuclear facilities in Iran, there is an Iranian official who says President Trump,
let me go back
have done something that
I want to go back a little further to the beginning.
I want to see these two guys.
Here we go.
Very nice.
Here we
All
go.
of you, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Peter?
Thank you, President Trump. James Comey and John Brennan, now under criminal investigation related to the Trump-Russia probe.
We'll get to that too.
Do you want to see these two guys behind bars?
Well, I know nothing about it other than what I read today, but I will tell you, I think they're very dishonest people. I think they're crooked as hell, and maybe they have to pay a price for that. I believe they are truly bad people and dishonest people. So whatever happens, happens.
And now, a few weeks after the strikes that you ordered on the nuclear facilities in Iran, there is an Iranian official who says President Trump, have done something that he can no longer sunbathe in Mar-a-Lago. As you lie there with your stomach to the sun, a small drone might hit you in the navel. It's very simple. Do you think that's a real threat? And when is the last time you went sunbathing anyway?
It's been a long time. It's been a long time.
I don't think he's
I don't know,
sunbathed.
maybe I was around 7 or so.
Yeah.
I'm not too big into it. Yeah, I guess it's a threat. I'm not sure it's a threat, actually, but perhaps it is.
two Democratic senators now, Cory Booker and Alex Padilla, have a new bill out. They want to require CBP and ICE officers to have legible IDs, and they don't want CBP or ICE officers covering their faces. Would you ever sign that?
Well, they wouldn't be saying that if they didn't hate our country, and they obviously do. I'm surprised that they would do it. Knowing a little bit about them, I don't know them well, but these officers are doing a tremendous job. They're great patriots. If you expose them because of statements like have been made by Democrats and others on the left, usually, mostly, I think probably exclusively, you put them in great danger, tremendous danger. And it's sort of funny when people picket in front of Columbia, in front of Harvard, and they have masks on, more than masks. I mean, you can't see anything. Nobody complains about that. But when a patriot who works for ICE or Border Patrol puts a mask on so that they won't recognize him and his family, so they can lead a little bit of a normal life after having worked so hard and so dangerously, there's a problem with that. So they have this is the problem with the Democrats. They have a lot of bad things going on in their heads. They've really become they've lost their confidence, number one, and they've become somewhat deranged. I want to do whatever's necessary to protect our great law enforcement people, and they are right at the top of the list.
And your agriculture department also announced this week that they are going to start limiting Chinese ownership of American farmland. Why do you think that the Chinese have been buying up all this farmland in our country close to military installations?
Well, I don't want to get into that. I have a very good relationship with President Xi. We're going to see, and I'm going to, they're going to be making a recommendation to me, but we have a very good relationship. As you know, they're paying a lot of tariffs to the United States now, and so I'm not going to get into that right now. Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yesterday, the Wall Street Journal reported that the White House was weighing whether to send another Patriot air defense system to Ukraine.
Okay, so anyway, so that's that. So he's basically saying, look, here's the deal. We got crazy Democrats. They're saying crazy things. They're saying these bizarre things. They're dangerous. They're threatening ICE individuals. You've got Alex Padilla and Cory Booker, who are now trying to pass legislation to require ICE agents to unmask and wear clearly marked, signage or ID on their uniforms, which of course would put them and their families in danger. And that is one of the big differences. When you're a terrorist at Columbia University, when you're a terrorist in Los Angeles, California, and you're throwing, bottle rockets or bricks or anything else at these law enforcement agents, you can wear your mask and nobody can say anything to you. You can hide your face, and they do because, again, they don't want to be found out. They don't want to be fired from their jobs. They don't want to be kicked out of their Ivy League institutions. They don't want any of that stuff. They just want to go about acting crazy, and act crazy they do. But when it's an ICE law enforcement agent who is doing their best to try and protect Americans from illegal immigrants and enforce the law, there's a different scenario, because those are not people who are breaking the law. Those are people who are enforcing the law, and they have every right to do it safely and protect themselves and their identities and their families. ICE, of course, it's a big no-no for the left. That is a 4-letter word to the left. In fact, Stacey Abrams was on one of these late night shows. I don't know why Stacey Abrams is still a thing, but she's still a thing. And she's on one of these late night shows, and she was talking about just spewing all this hatred and lies and BS about the National Weather Service. Listen to this. Caroline Leavitt had an amazing rebuttal. But listen to, here's what Stacey Abrams said. Wait a minute. Hold on. Hold the phone 1 second. Let me pull up the clip right here. It's right here. Stacey Abrams is right. Where did it go? Here it is. Here we go. Stacey Abrams in 3, 2.
Just happened in Texas. The fact that they slashed the National Weather Service, whether or not that was the direct proximate cause of those deaths, the fact that we're having that conversation is the issue. The fact that we aren't sure is the problem. And so we need to hold to what we deserve. We should not be dissuaded, especially as Black women, as women of color, as people of color. We should not be convinced that we don't have power. They are mad at us for a reason. There are enough of us that we can change the outcome of elections, but also change the outcome of power.
Well, you can't change the outcome of that election in Georgia twice. Apparently, there's so many of us that we can change the course of elections, except, of course, for the governor of Georgia, the president of the United States, any of our Senate or House of Representatives. Other than that, though, we can change elections for sure. It's really weird what she said. Listen again to what she said. She said, well, yeah, just listen again.
Just happened in Texas. The fact that they slashed the National Weather Service, whether or not that was the direct proximate cause of those deaths, the fact that we're having that conversation is the issue.
That's not the issue. She doesn't even know. She knows absolutely nothing. She said, look at what happened in Texas. The fact that they slashed the National Weather Service, whether or not that was the cause, we shouldn't even be having this conversation. The fact that we're having the conversation is the issue. Yeah, because it's a dumb conversation to have. That slashing the National Weather Service did absolutely nothing to cause the floods or the damage or the devastation or the death in Texas. They know it, but they're trying to find any way they can to lash out at President Donald Trump. Caroline Leavitt was asked about this. Here's what she said yesterday on the White House lawn to somebody. I think it was Fox News. Here it is.
In your monologue, Jesse, I can't believe I heard stupid Stacey Abrams say that deportations kill democracy. Newsflash, Stacey, wide open borders kills democracy. And that's what the American people voted against. The American public witnessed an open border, illegal alien invasion for 4 years, and they said enough is enough. The vast majority of this country supports deporting illegal criminals from our communities. This administration is all hands on deck in doing that, despite pushback from these radical Democrats at the state and local level. ICE and Border Patrol are doing the work that they swore an oath to do, to remove public safety threats from our communities, to protect our nation, our homeland, and our citizens. And they face now a 700% increase in violence from radical left lunatics. And we're not going to tolerate that. Anyone who threatens or who partakes in violence against our brave law enforcement officers against this in this country is going to face the fullest extent of justice from our great Attorney General.
I love when she gets street. You can hear her. She goes, threatens. She gets a little street in there. She grew up on the mean streets of New Hampshire. I don't know if there are mean streets. But that's what. But when she gets really angry, when she gets really fired out, they're threatened, and we are not going to stand for it. We are going to make sure that our Border Patrol enforcement agents are getting the best that we have to offer. And look, they're not the only ones. There's a bunch of idiots on the left that are talking stupid. Gavin Newsom, for example, listen to what he said about President Donald Trump in Texas.
After all, the natural disaster that occurred and it continues to occur and unfold in Texas may have humbled him. You know, that image you saw, I don't know if you woke up like I woke up. God is my witness. First image I saw this morning, turned on MSNBC, and it was a photograph of that beautiful 13-year-old girl and her 11-year-old sister that were found clutching each other's hands, washed down the river, found dead.
And he said, first of all, when he says, as God is my witness, I just wait for the lightning bolts. I just wait for the lightning bolts to strike. And he says, hopefully that Donald Trump is humbled by this. I'm not sure I don't know, again, what they think Donald Trump, this is not a terrorist attack. This is not the retaliation for the bombings in Iran. This is not, a group of MAGA individuals who kind of blew up a building or something. This is nature. This is water from the sky. This is God himself who put in forth whatever happened, and the floodwaters came and people died, and Donald Trump had no hand in that. He had no hand in it. He and his National Weather Service and everyone else did whatever they could to forewarn people. There were alerts that went out constantly. The weather folks on television and on the radio, the NOAA radio personnel were broadcasting signals and telling people, got to get out. Not everybody has a NOAA radio. And also, fun fact, not everybody can get somewhere in the middle of the night when it's pitch black dark and they're probably sleeping anyway. By the time the floodwaters raged and were ravaging their entire livelihoods and threatening their lives, a lot of these people, it was too late because they were asleep. It was horrible timing. It was horrible weather. It was horrible luck. And it's horrible that the Democrats are trying to blame Donald Trump. But of course, it's not just Gavin Newsom and Stacey Abrams and Hakeem Jeffries and CNN and MSNBC. It's also Jasmine Crockett.
So anyway, I just wanted to jump on because my heart is truly heavy for all of these families. The sad part is I think that my heart is going to carry a level of weight that will continue to weigh me down as we have to continue to do our best to survive an administration that literally is against us. An administration that is doing everything, in my mind, to hurt us and not help us. And it feels like we're fending for ourselves.
All right. By the way, she mentioned both her heart. It hurts her heart. And she said, in my mind, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think she has either of those things. But that's just my humble opinion. But if Jasmine Crockett is out there saying, look, we need to stick together because this administration is against us. They're literally, that's what she said. This administration is literally against us. And for probably the first time in my life, I can say Jasmine Crockett is 100% right. Jasmine Crockett, she finally said something sensible. This administration is against you because you are against the United States of America. You are against the Constitution. You are against building the greatest country and the greatest economy and the strongest fighting force that we've ever had. You are against solidifying our borders so that our nation can survive. You are against getting criminals out of our country so that we can keep our neighborhoods and our neighbors safe. You are against economic boons. You're against everything that our founding fathers, that the good Lord above, that every single American who fought and died for this country, fought and died for this country for. So yes, Jasmine Crockett, we are literally against you. You hit the nail on the head. Smartest thing you've ever said. If you're against America, we're against you. It's a pretty simple. That's the first time I think she's ever grasped anything like that. Listen, I do have this Epstein clip. Donald Trump went off on a reporter yesterday about the Epstein situation. We're going to play that for you, but real quick, I do want to share with you that we are running for Congress over here, and by we I mean me. But we're slowly putting a team together, and that team needs money because money is, unfortunately, you get votes two ways. You knock on doors, you talk to people, you give speeches, and then you get money. And the person with the more money usually gets more votes. Unfortunately, that's the system we have. That's the system we're stuck with. That's the system we have to work within. But most people get their money from, dark money or massive donors or PACs. And we don't have any of those things. So what we're doing is we're selling hats. Some people like my opponent, John Rutherford, congressman from Florida's 5th District, he gets his money from PACs. We get our money from hats. So instead of PAC money, we're looking for hat money. And if you want to help us out with some hat money, we'll send you an official Mark Kaye for Congress baseball cap, the same kind that I am wearing right now on my bald head. If you'd like it autographed, all you got to do is kick in some more cash. There's a link in the description of this video, and you can go there and you can see that there's a little, a picture of the hat. If you make a $50 donation and, add the fees, we will send you the hat, no problem. If you make a $500 donation, I will autograph the hat. You'll get a signed hat. And all of that money, again, goes to our plight to uphold all of those constitutional values that Jasmine Crockett is against. All of those, those founding fathers' ideals that Jasmine Crockett is trying to execute on a daily basis, along with her friends and cohorts in Congress. So get the hat, help out the campaign. It's $50 for the hat, $500 if you want it autographed. You can give any amount you want, $100, $200, $1,000 if you want to give. Okay, that's not true. Legally, the FEC has limited single individual donors to $3,500. So when I say you can give any amount, that's false. You can only give up to $3,500 each election cycle. So please be cognizant of that. I don't want the FEC. I mean, I'd love for you to give me a check for $10,000, but that's just not possible because we don't take PAC money. We only take hat money. That's how we're gonna win this campaign with our hats, not our super hats, not our super PACs. Oh, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call it a super hat from now on. That's a great idea. All right. So the Epstein files have been rankling a lot of feathers all over the place. For a long time, the Epstein files have been causing some controversy. The Epstein client list. Years ago, when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and then died mysteriously in a prison cell, and some people say he committed suicide, he offed himself. That was never the narrative that anybody believed. The evidence never pointed to Jeffrey Epstein killing himself in prison. That seemed far-fetched. And pretty much everybody on the right could agree on one thing. Well, could agree on two things. Jeffrey Epstein was a horrible person who broke the law and aided and abetted rich, powerful people in doing horrible things with young girls on his secret island. That was number one. And number two, he didn't kill himself. And President Donald Trump campaigned on, releasing the Epstein files, letting people know what was going on, releasing the RFK documents and the JFK documents and the MLK documents and all these other documents. And he brought in Pam Bondi when Matt Gaetz stepped aside because I guess nobody thought he could get through Senate confirmation, which is a shame, which probably, let's be honest, he couldn't. If Matt Gaetz were our attorney general, we would probably be looking at a very different scenario regarding these Epstein files. And that's probably why senators on both sides came out against him. He's got a lot of enemies and there's a lot of corrupt people on both sides of the aisle in the Senate. So Matt Gaetz was a non-starter. He was a non-issue. It wouldn't happen. And so Donald Trump, put in Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi came out, and for whatever reason, and I don't know, I've been racking my brain. I've been trying to figure out the timeline of this thing. The whole the files are on my desk comment, or the client list is on my desk comment, followed by the fake binders that she gave to some of those influencers, Jack Posobiec and, Liz Wheeler and others, the DC Drano. They all got these binders filled with information that was already made public. Then there was the whole we've got truckloads of video, 10,000, all the stuff. And now all of a sudden, just 2 days after the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill, for whatever reason, the DOJ and the FBI and now President Donald Trump are doing their best to slam the lid shut on the Jeffrey Epstein case. And when the memo came out on Sunday, which is a day you let things out if you're trying to bury something, when the memo came out on Sunday of a July 4th weekend, people were shocked and stunned. And by Monday morning, it was a huge story. And Pam Bondi was being raked over the coals. Everyone was questioning. We were going back over the videos. We were saying, what is she doing? What's the end game here? Why are they taking, people were questioning Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Why is the FBI doing what they've been doing for years now? Why can't we get the truth? Who are they trying to protect? Yada, yada, yada. And everyone they started to rehash and to reinvestigate the entire Epstein investigation, which is something clearly the administration didn't want to happen. Well, yesterday, President Donald Trump held a cabinet meeting. It was an amazingly wild cabinet meeting. There were John Lovitz references, as you heard earlier in the show. There was cursing by Donald Trump. He told a story about stealing Marco Rubio's clock, which was kind of cool. And then there was this back and forth where he basically pimp slapped a reporter who asked Pam Bondi a question about Jeffrey Epstein. The question, remember, again, was asked to the attorney general, but the president jumped in, adding further fuel to the speculatory fire as to why the Epstein case is now trying to be closed for good.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, so President Donald Trump saying, are you still talking about this creep? Are you actually asking? You're still talking about Jeffrey Epstein, this creep? You really want to waste your time? This is a desecration. There's people in Texas who are dead. There's stuff going on in Iran. We've got peace in the Middle East. This is what you want to waste your time on? And he says to Pam Bondi, do you want to answer the question? She goes, yeah, I'll answer the question. But it was a very heavy-handed response to this reporter whose question, again, his question basically was, what happened to the list, and was Jeffrey Epstein a federal asset? Was he an asset for the United States of America? Was he a foreign asset? Was he, doing espionage or a covert thing? Yada, all that stuff. And Donald Trump jumped in and laid into this guy, which seemed a little out of place and a little bizarre. And so that just fueled the fire even more. And now everyone's like, clearly Donald Trump is trying to protect somebody. And the fact that it comes so close to the passing of the One Big Beautiful Bill, I have to ask myself, are the two intertwined? Because if you look at the timeline, the One Big Beautiful Bill, Donald Trump demanded July 4th. We need it passed on July 4th. July 4th is my self-imposed deadline. And it's got to rush through the Senate. It's got to rush through the House. It's got to get back to the House after it went to the Senate. We need everybody flying back in, and we got to rally the troops. We got to make sure that this thing passes by July 4th because I want to sign it on July 4th at the White House, and I want my agenda ready to go, and I want the money for it, and I want the one big beautiful bill. I want it all. And that was Donald Trump's mandate to the Senate and to the House, and he got it done. And within 48 hours of the signing of that bill, maybe a little longer, after the 4th of July weekend, this Jeffrey Epstein case was slammed shut. So I'm wondering if there was some kind of deal made with some senators, some Congress people, somebody in a position of power who would only vote for Donald Trump's one big beautiful bill if Donald Trump promised to make sure that they were never implicated as a guest at Jeffrey Epstein's disgusting, sexually depraved resort. I'm wondering, again, this is just speculation on my point. I'm walking through and I'm saying, all right, what happened before this announcement? Well, the one big beautiful bill passed, and it barely passed the Senate. J.D. Vance, remember, he had to go in, and J.D. Vance had to submit the tie-breaking vote. And the people who voted against it were Rand Paul, who I don't think Rand Paul's implicated in anything because, well, Rand Paul voted against it. And also, we knew Rand Paul was going to vote against it. He hates spending money. Tom Tillis hates Donald Trump, and he voted against it. So, of course, there was no deal made with him. And Susan Collins, well, no one would invite Susan Collins to Epstein. She would just be a buzzkill for sure. Party pooper, 100%. And those are the three people that voted against the bill. But look who voted for it. Look who voted for it. Who voted with Donald Trump? Who voted for Trump's one big beautiful bill? Who hates President Donald Trump? Who is corrupt, has been around long enough to have potentially been a guest of Jeffrey Epstein or flown to Epstein Island or know something about it? Who in the Senate? And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of people who've been hanging around for a very long time that maybe saw an opportunity, that maybe said, I will vote for this bill on one condition. You have to protect my legacy. Maybe somebody who won't get another chance. I don't know. Mitch McConnell is old. Mitch McConnell's kind of a creepy guy. Mitch McConnell's been around forever. Mitch McConnell's kind of corrupt, I would think. And Mitch McConnell's leaving. And Mitch McConnell, or whoever's controlling his brain these days, had maybe one last opportunity to cut a deal. Again, this is all speculation. This is me drawing my own conclusions. I'm not saying this is fact. I'm not basing it on anything. I'm saying a deal was made somewhere to protect somebody. And the only thing that Donald Trump could have gotten out of it was a vote for the one big beautiful bill. I could be totally wrong. It wouldn't be the first time, but it would be like the fifth, maybe. It would be the fifth. Anyway, that's all I'm saying. There's others too, Lindsey Graham, he's facing a primary challenge, I'm sure. I'm not saying Lindsey Graham's a weirdo. I'm not saying it. I may think it, but I'm not saying it. There's other people in the Senate. There's Democrats as well. None of them voted for the one big beautiful bill, so I don't think that's the case. I think it's a high-ranking Republican that President Donald Trump needed to get his agenda passed, and a deal was struck. And I think that at the end of the day, I think what President Donald Trump is doing is maybe protecting Pam Bondi, trying to protect Pam Bondi, because think about this too. When this started, right, the FBI and the DOJ passed this or released this statement. They released this big this whole thing. We've studied all the files, and here's what we've determined. There's no client list. Stop looking for it and just believe us. We've determined there was no blackmail. Stop looking for blackmail. There wasn't any, and just believe us. There's no credible evidence to bring anyone else to justice. Well, that sounds like somebody knew they were on the client list. Somebody had been blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein, which could lead to all other kinds of investigations. And somebody knew that they could potentially land in prison. So somebody called up President Donald Trump and said, I'm a hard no on the one big beautiful bill unless you bury this list. So this thing came out on Sunday, and then who got the blame for it? Pam Bondi. Why? Because she was the one stringing us all along. Kash Patel never came forward and said, the Epstein files are on my desk. The Epstein files he said something about, the files in New York that they were going to go get or whatever. Dan Bongino, all Dan Bongino said was, I saw the file. He killed himself. That angered a lot of people a lot of people were angry enough about that. I know Dan Bongino, not as well as some people, but I know him enough to know that, I trust him. I don't know if Jeffrey Epstein, I'm not saying Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. I'm saying if Dan Bongino's saying it, Dan Bongino has a good reason to say it. That's all I'm saying. I still think the guy was totally off. But the fact of the matter is that when you look at the timing, and then Donald Trump jumps in yesterday and lashes out at this reporter, I think he's trying to save Pam Bondi, because if you look on X, or if you look on the internet, or if you look anywhere, people are calling for Pam Bondi's head. And he doesn't want her to be the scapegoat. He doesn't want this to take her down and ruin her reputation after he picked her in place of Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General. That's my long, drawn-out conclusion from looking at the evidence. Like I said, I could be totally wrong. Anyway, listen, there's something else that happened in the meeting yesterday. I wanted to share this with you. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This was something that Kristi Noem announced about the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. Years ago, right after 9/11, there was a shoe bomber. His name was, what was his name? What was the shoe bomber's name? Hold on, shoe bomber. It was something, Richard Reed, is that right? Yeah, the shoe bomber. He was a British Islamic terrorist, and he got aboard a flight in 2001. It was right after 9/11, and I don't know if you remember the story. If you weren't around then you don't remember it. But basically, what happened was, it was right after 9/11. People were panicked. Everybody was on high alert, and this guy walked onto a plane with his shoes on, and he was sitting down at the flight, and he bent over when the plane was in the air. He took out a lighter, and he started to strike the lighter. And it looked like he had wires or something, some kind of fuse sticking out of his shoe, sticking out of the sole of his shoe. And everybody jumped on this guy. Everybody was like, oh, hell to the no. This is not going to be 9/11 2.0. And they took this guy out, and they found some kind of makeshift explosive that apparently didn't work that well in his shoe. And he was trying to take down another plane. So immediately, everybody had to take their shoes off. Immediately, everybody had to take their shoes off. And not only that, you had to put your shoes in the little bin, and you had to send your shoes through security. And it was just crazy. People were like walking around barefoot. There were socks. And that was, 2001. It's 2005. That was 24 years ago, almost 2.5 decades ago. For 20 years, we've been taking off our shoes, unless, of course, your TSA pre-check, which I highly recommend. Now, all of a sudden, listen to this. This was Kristi Noem's big announcement yesterday.
We have some very exciting news to announce that today we have started a new no shoes policy with the the Transportation Security Administration. TSA will no longer require travelers to remove their shoes when they go through our security checkpoints. This is something that I know for quite some time people have talked about and discussed, and we know that when President Trump was elected that he pledged to make life better for all Americans, and that includes those who are travelers going through our busy airports.
Yeah. So the no shoes, which, by the way, this always makes me think of Kenny Chesney. No shoes, no shirt, no problem. The no shoes mandate for the FAA has been lifted, and you no longer have to remove your shoes, which was a hassle for a lot of people. Some people didn't know, like if you had metal in your shoes or a buckle in your shoes or something in your shoes that made the alarm sound or whatever, people were like, oh, I don't even know what that is. But now we've come forward. I guess it's because we have new equipment. I guess it's because we realized that with the equipment we have can sense any kind of explosive residue. I guess they just realized it was kind of ridiculous at this point. So now you can keep your shoes on when you're passing through the airport. Your belt still has to come off, and I think your computer still has to come out of your bag, unless, of course, you're TSA pre-check. But TSA pre-check is interesting too. I got the TSA pre-check a few years ago, and it was great because you would roll right through, right? You go right through, and then word got around. So everybody was getting TSA pre-check. And so now what happens is you go to the regular line, and the regular line's like so long, and then you go to the TSA pre-check line, and the TSA pre-check line is almost just as long. Now, you still want to stay in the TSA pre-check line because you don't have to take off your shoes or your belt or your laptop out of your bag or anything like that, which is a whole other hassle. But it's I wonder if that was one of the reasons too. I wonder if we just have so much information, plus Real ID. With Real ID being a thing now and being mandated to fly, that could be another reason why they're getting rid of the shoes. But look, flying is going to become much safer Because in the meeting yesterday, we heard from Sean Duffy, we heard from the administration that the One Big Beautiful Bill is putting billions of dollars toward revamping our totally dilapidated and totally outdated air traffic control system. And I'm not going to go through it again because I played the clip earlier today and it just scared me. It made me not want to fly anywhere because the way he was describing the air traffic control system, I was just like, WTF, man, how are these planes even getting off the ground? How are they not all just running into each other in the sky? I mean, he's got radar systems from the 1950s and other equipment that's decades old, wiring that hasn't been updated in God knows how long. Not to mention, not enough people in the workforce who are trained. And that's the other thing, too. If you hire some new air traffic controller and they walk into the place and they see all this equipment, they're going to be like, I'm not working here. I'm not working. This equipment is outdated. It's ineffective. I'm going to get blamed for something when really this whole system needs to be modernized. And what they did in Newark Airport was phenomenal. They took Newark Airport, they realized it was an issue, they realized it was a massive problem, and in just a couple of weeks, they revamped the entire thing. Now they're going to take the money from the One Big Beautiful Bill, and they're going to do the rest of the country. And it's going to be pretty good, pretty gosh darn good. There's one more thing I wanted to share with you here. This was, let's see, I did this one. Hang on. Oh, here it is. This is Pete Hegseth. And Pete Hegseth, one of the things we always talk about with the Donald Trump administration is the ability of this team to work together and how every cabinet post works with every other cabinet post. And the whole thing about these Chinese farms near military bases is a perfect example about this, because you've got farms, which is agriculture, and military bases, which is the Department of Defense. And you've got Pete Hegseth and Brooke Rollins and Pam Bondi and everybody else working together to come up with a solution to keep the Chinese, who are our number one adversary, still from attacking our military bases by buying up all the farmland around them. And here was Pete Hegseth yesterday at this press conference discussing it.
Truly a historic mission.
Pardon me, that is Pete Hegseth in the cabinet meeting discussing it. Here's him at the press conference.
I want to know who owns the land around our bases and strategic bases, and getting an understanding of why foreign entities, foreign companies, foreign individuals might be buying up land around those bases. That's something I should be paying attention to on behalf of the American people, on behalf of my department, and on behalf of the president. It's common sense. And so food security, just like energy resilience, just like where we get our water, that's all national security, especially in a contingency. So we would be asleep at the wheel if we were not fully a party to an effort like this to ensure that our nation had the food supply it needs. But specifically, our troops have what they need on our bases, so that in those moments you can rely on us here in the United States to provide that security. So no longer can foreign adversaries assume we're not watching and we're not paying attention and we're not doing something about it, because we are. So, Brooke, thank you very much.
Yeah, so there they are. They're doing something about it, because he's right. Here's the thing: when Americans always, not really always, I mean, a lot of us are smart, but there's a lot of Americans that assume that foreign adversaries are just going to use traditional means to attack us. For example, the Golden Dome is a great way to keep the military of other large nations from attacking us with missiles. But there's smaller nations that want to attack us, and they don't have missiles. They don't have intercontinental ballistic missiles. They don't have nuclear technology. They don't have any of that stuff. So what happens is, or what ends up happening is, you have all of these other countries who are threatening us in non-military ways, with our agriculture, with our water supply. They're going to try to poison our reservoirs, all these different things, drone attacks, anything and everything that could potentially happen. Pete Hegseth has to have his finger on the pulse of it. And he has to be ready for and prepared for. And that's why he's working so closely with Brooke Rollins as well, because we need to make sure that every threat is assessed and every threat is addressed. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. All right, so tomorrow I'm traveling to Tampa for TPUSA, and it may have to be a travel day. There may be no live show or podcast. We're going to see. There may be one in the evening. What I may be able to do is do one later in the day, but I'm not really sure. However, I'll make up for it on Saturday, because we're going to be live at TPUSA all weekend, and we will do probably a live Saturday show. If not, there will be so much content. I'm lining up interviews left, right, and center. I'm looking at the guest list of people who are going to be there. Byron Donalds is coming, and Don Jr. is going to be there. Matt Gaetz, I'm going to try to hook up with him. So it's going to be it's going to be a cavalcade of influencers and conservative voices and superstars and politicians, and I'll be there as well, trying to drum up support for myself. And that is something that is, I think, really kind of cool, and it's a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend all my time creating as much content as possible to bring it to you, but it does mean that tomorrow will be a travel day, and I won't be able to do this particular show live. We will still have the 47 Daily in the morning, so make sure that you're subscribed to that. Otherwise, make sure you're subscribed to this channel too, so that when we do get all those great reports from TPUSA, when we do go live on Saturday, you'll be able to get the notification. You'll know that we're live, that we're sharing stuff with you that we want you to know, that we think you should know. We're sharing the truth with you so that you can stay informed and you can stay enlightened and you can stay inspired to continue to fight back against all these lunatics, Hakeem Jeffries, Jasmine Crockett, Stacey Abrams, all of them, because they're going to keep coming at us. As we read in Axios, we know that they're going to start taking bullets. They're going to start agitating more. They're going to up the rhetoric. We're in a more is more environment. That's what Hakeem Jeffries said. More is more. And we've got to be prepared because they're coming after us, every single one of them. And we all need to fight, fight, fight so we can save the republic.